What up YouTube, Bonza here, back with another video, and today I've got one that I've been telling you guys I was going to do for quite some time now. It's going to be my mini review of Netflix's The Three Body Problem, plus mainly going to be a discussion on the SHan'Ti, the alien race featured in that show, because I found them particularly interesting, and that's the main reason why I wanted to do this video actually, even after all this time. So a few disclaimers to get out of the way. One, I'm not a book reader, so because of that, I don't know any of the specific details about the book and stuff that happened to it, so I can't comment so much on that, and well, at all on that. And also, it's been quite a while now since I've watched the show, and so because of that, I don't really remember much of the details on the show, so I can't give you guys a full proper review. But yeah, like I said, I'll just go over some things briefly, just to give you guys an idea of what I like, what I didn't like, just my general impression of the show before I go on to talk about the SHan'Ti, which was the main thing I wanted to talk about today. So yeah, as far as my impression of the show itself, generally speaking, I'd like to say that firstly, I am someone who's definitely sort of like the targeted audience for this show in general, as a mathematics student at university, who does math and physics adjacent math at that. I would say that there were a lot of times, well, not a lot, but a few times where some stuff happened on the show and I was like, oh yeah, hey, I think I do stuff like that in school, right? And also, as a sci-fi fan in general, it was also nice when some things like the Fermi paradox gets name dropped at one point throughout the show. And so there are a lot of aspects of the show that appeal to me personally as science math student and a sci-fi fan in general. And so I did go into the show with high hopes walking into it. But Netflix is very inconsistent with its hits and misses, and so I was skeptical at the same time. Turns out the show was pretty mid as far as I could say about it. I'll rate it at the end, but firstly, before that, I just mentioned I'll say, well, as far as the characters were, right, the only character that I ever really liked out of all of the main cast initially was the fat guy, right, the one who's played by that actor who plays Samuel Tarly in Game of Thrones. So funny enough, he wasn't my favorite character. Funny enough, I found him very annoying at first, but there's that particular scene where he's sitting opposite his friend who's sick and dying and trying to confess to him, and his friend tells him he's gonna die and everything and that he wants to give up, but then Samuel Tarly's character just goes like, I'm just gonna Sam, just for his sake. So Sam's character just goes to him and he's like, no, F that. I'm not gonna let you give up. I'm not gonna let you just die down and go away or fade away and die. We're gonna try. We're gonna do what we can to survive. And as someone who's been down on this luck before in the past, and I had some friends help me, it was like struck a chord with me personally, and so I really enjoyed his character, and I was kind of rooting for the guy, and he's still kind of annoying here and there, but he was the only character that I felt relatable to. And also, out of all of those characters, he's the science guy characters. Out of all of them, he was the only one that I feel personally that I could have made friends with, right? Because he's a science guy nerd, right, like me, but then at the same time he's also a geek and he enjoys a lot of geeky things and games and stuff like me. And so yeah, there's some aspects of him that annoyed me, but I think I could have made friends with that guy. So I was rooting for him. And then they killed him off, first guy to die unceremoniously, and then just kind of now I don't care about any of these other people. And that's true, right? None of these other characters stuck out to me. None of them grabbed me in any ways. The science girls were doing cool science things. The black guy got delegated to babysitter duty, and even though they kept touting him as being the smartest guy in the group, he never ended up doing anything to really earn that title during the show, although it seems like they might have given him some big role to play out in the future seasons. Yeah, as far as him in this season, it was kind of disappointing, despite how they talked about him in the beginning. I wouldn't say I hated the sick guy character, but he never made me feel good about, he was not exciting, right? There was other interesting things happening, slightly interesting things happening in the show, and his was the most boring aspect. But I didn't hate it. I don't know why I didn't hate it. So I think some people might hate his scenes. I didn't hate it. I just didn't find it interesting, comparatively speaking. I think if it was set in a better show, I might have liked it, maybe, for whatever reason. Anyway, yeah, other than that, the guy the British guy who plays the spy agent or whatever, I like his stuff. Yeah, he's a good actor. He's good in whatever role he's done. I'm not gonna complain there. Probably the only other character that I didn't like him, but I was like, I like you, kind of. Yeah, other than that, the plot overall in general about how things played out to me was interesting at times, right? but some of the things wound up being disappointing. I can't remember what it was, like I said, unfortunately. But what I can say is that all in all, I did find the story interesting as a whole, but I just didn't tie it. They just didn't land it, is what I'll say. They just didn't land some of the hits. It didn't meet up to my expectation, and so sort of drops down below. So I'm just gonna rate it now and then move on to my talk on the SHan'Ti. So as far as I'm concerned, personally, my personal rating on the show would be 6 out of 10, which is generous, right? I don't think it deserves that score, but that's just like how I felt about it personally, which is that I did enjoy it more than I think I should have. But generally speaking, to be objective, I think the show was mid at best. You know, like I wouldn't argue with you if you wanted to rate it a 4 or a 5 out of 10. I'll give it a 5 though, to try to be like, give it some, because it wasn't like a terrible shit show, right? But it wasn't like particularly entertaining. And you're only going to get more about it, more out of it if you focus more on the show and try to understand it. But then it's not going to be much, so it's just kind of not really worth your time, to be completely honest, which is unfortunate. Anyway, that's me trying to be brief with a review. Now let's go on to talk about the thing I did want to talk about, which is the SHan'Ti. So yeah, as far as the SHan'Ti were concerned, I find them overall to be a very interesting alien race, and definitely one that I like more than most. Like I put them in the better, like out of all the alien races that I've come across in fiction, I put them past the halfway mark, and maybe even, actually no, I put them much more higher than that actually. I need to think about that more. Maybe I'll come up with an answer at the end of this video, but there definitely is one that I like more than the rest. I don't think they're, yeah, I do like them more than one. But the reason I'm not willing to like them a lot is because I'm not sure how much the writer actually was intentional about what they're doing. Maybe they were. Who's to say? Maybe they were. So what I'm talking about in terms of what fascinates me about them is that let's start off by talking about the system that they live in, right? The SHan'Ti alien race is an alien species that lives in a trirary system, right? 3 stars revolving around, and then you have planets, 3 stars, and then you have planets revolving around stars around those trirary system, and they live in one of those planets. And as far as the physics is concerned, last I checked, it checks out that we can't really predict with calculus the motion of planetary systems within a 3-body system. So planets within a 3-body system, and so like the science is dead on right there. So that was like kind of interesting. Okay, so what kind of species would survive in such a chaotic environment, right? And so it's a species that must be able to adapt to many harsh environments and all that, right? So those are the type of life forms you find on the planet. But at the same time, this is not just a species that survived on those planets, but they thrived, and they managed to create alien spaceships and advanced technology. That means that they must have other aspects of their social society, right, which is one step up from the lizard brain, you know, when you have like societal complexes and stuff, that allows that species to be able to survive and create complex social structures and build the science and all that, and build spaceships and stuff. And so it makes sense that such a species would then go on to be very driven towards very communistic, right? Communistic in the sense that they care a lot about the community. And in the very first level 1 scene of the video game in the show, you can see that girl being turned into like a desert thingy and then thrown into the water to grow. And that's that saying where it's like, if one of us survives, all of us survives, right? So that just really hammers home that idea that this is a species that cares a lot about the survival of itself as a species as a whole. Individuality is not so much a driving force. They want to survive as a species, and so it's communistic. And so it makes sense that you'd have a species that tends to form societies along those lines, and it makes sense that they would survive in the situation because it's a harsh environment. You know, under some conditions, you want species that can spread out and be strong individually to survive, right? If that's the nature of how things are set up, life is set up in the planet they're in. But in this particular context, at least, I think it makes sense that they be more communistic as opposed to, I think I would say humans are individualistic. That's just me being kind of biased, maybe, you know, because we don't have anything to really compare it to. But based on what I can tell, it makes sense to me that they would be the way they were. So that was highlighted in level 1. And then another interesting thing that's mentioned about them is that they're an alien race that communicates telepathic. Well, I don't know if it's ever stated telepathically. I don't think they're a hybrid though, because at one point when the old white guy is talking to his god or his lordship or whatever, the lordship would say, we'll discuss amongst ourselves, right? So that implies that there is still individuals within this society. They're not a hive mind. There are individual units that can sort of have their own thoughts, but then they can communicate their thoughts efficiently. And that's that line where she says about them not being able to lie, which is kind of controversial, and I'll talk more on that a bit later. But we don't have to lie. We just tell everybody the truth and we communicate efficiently. She mentions they don't talk with words, right? So they must use some other means, which is efficiently able to disseminate information amongst their species. And so because of that, I'm like, it makes sense that, like, you know, a species that is that efficient to disseminate information, that cares a lot about survival of that species as a whole as opposed to the individual, and then with those two things in mind, those are two aspects at least that I would expect to exist in a species that lives in a tri-area star system. So like I was like, oh shit, okay, this is well thought out to a certain degree. Like a lot of this stuff is starting to make sense. And then moving on to the other part that I'm kind of controversial and sort of iffy on is one of the aspects of the show where the SHan'Ti seem to tell the humans everything, right, about their plan, everything they're gonna do, everything they're gonna, like, they talked about their technology, they described it, how it works, they're telling them all their intentions. And at first I was thinking, like, this is lazy writing, right? I was kind of disappointed then. At that point I was like, this is like in those old shows where the bad guy monologues about their evil plan to the hero so that the audience can understand what's going on. And it's lazy, right? And maybe it was lazy. I don't know whether to give this writer more credit or not, but at the same time, I like to give them the benefit to the doubt and say that maybe they were thinking along the lines of, like, the way the species functions, right? So as I've mentioned, it's a species that survives in a harsh environment. They communicate efficiently by some means that's like spreads the information that they say with true intent. Now, just because you introduce that species to another species that lies a lot, and they learn about the concept of lying from them, that doesn't necessarily change the nature of the species. They've learned a new thing, they've picked up a possible new skill, but I don't know how much they'd want to adapt their practices. And this is why I'm kind of iffy on this idea. So my idea or my argument that I'm trying to give here is that it makes sense to me on some level that they as a species would continue to be honest and just tell the humans everything about their plan, because that's just kind of in their nature. They exist in a way where they just send out the information, tell everybody intentions, this is what we're going to do, blah blah blah. But then at the same time, and why I'm kind of unhappy with this idea is because if they had been a species that been observing humans for a short period of time, I'd still understand why they keep telling the truth, right? But they've been observing humans for over 50 years, right, at this point, right? That's more than enough time to learn about human society, how it works, see how, watch movies like The Avengers and see Thor doing all that crazy shit and think, oh, is that what humans are like? But then they look at social media and stuff and they're like, oh no, Chris Hemsworth is a real person. He doesn't have those powers. He's just acting in that movie, and they use visual effects to make it look like he was doing that shit. It's not actually real. And so I was kind of disappointed when they were like, oh, humans lie all of a sudden in that scene where the old guy is talking to his lordship or whatever, right? It's like, what? This is something we didn't know. We need to discuss this. And so I was disappointed when that happened to me. Well, not happened to me, but happened in the show. And I was like, come on, Ryan. This is something that they should have known, right? Especially if they can, monitor humans with cameras and everything and have access to our entire internet. They should know this. So I was disappointed with that. But then at the same time, like I said, it still makes sense to me that they would still continue to be honest to a degree. And you know what? Let me know if you guys disagree with that idea. Maybe you don't. Maybe you do think it was a cop-out by the writer and that it's unexcusable and that my excuse is not good enough. But either way, I wasn't as down on it because I sort of logicked my way out of being disappointed at the SHan'Ti because of that. All in all, I do think that if it turns out in season 2 that they were withholding some information and that they weren't telling the humans everything, I would be impressed and I would like that more. But the SHan'Ti get knocked down a few points for me as far as alien races that I like are concerned because of that one little aspect that I think is kind of stupid. Observing humans for so long and not knowing the line is a thing ridiculous. Yeah. Was there anything else about the SHan'Ti I wanted to discuss? I think the technology is cool. I think the way they're quite intimidating. A lot of the effects they did to mess up humans, doing the mirror thing and controlling what humans see when they look up at the stars. A lot of that stuff was pretty cool. It was really interesting to see that happen, and I like the way humans reacted to it. Well, I don't know if I necessarily agree with all of the ways humans reacted to it, but then they didn't focus too much on that in the show, so it's fine, I guess. But yeah, it was they were very interesting race. I've had no time now, but I can't really decide whether I really like the SHan'Ti or not. But yeah, I still like them more than I dislike them. There's that one aspect of them that I think is pretty stupid, but other than that, I think they're a fascinating alien race, and they're either gonna really disappoint me in season 2 or they're gonna not. I don't think they'll exceed my expectations though, but we'll see. They did exceed my expectations in the season 1, so yeah, I like them more than that. So yeah, those are my thoughts on the SHan'Ti and my thoughts on the show as a whole. Like I said again, my personal rating is 6 out of 10, but I think the show is mid at best, objectively speaking. Otherwise, thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you guys liked it. Please don't forget to press the like button if you did. Comment down below whether or not you agree with my logicking out of my cop out, my coup here on the SHan'Ti, whether you think that I'm just bullshitting myself. But otherwise, yeah, thank you very much for watching this, and with that, this is Bonz signing out. Catch you all later.